I'm happy to be here. We are going to discuss about sustainable mobility today. It's something that lies on one of the four pillars of the course. The other ones are participatory planning, the evidence-based, and urban planning and urbanism in general. So the other pillar is mobility, or you may have heard that with the term transportation or transport. So starting with that, we're gonna say a few things about these kind of terms. So mobility is not the same with transportation. And in some papers or in some reports, we may find that these two terms are used interchangeably. They are used for the same reason, but to be more precise, in this course, we have to take into account that they are not the same. So mobility is like the ability to freely move or, okay, to be moved as well. And transportation is the act of moving something or someone. So the major difference is that mobility includes somehow uh, the human perspective and how we deal with this kind of task, the task of moving ourselves or others. On the contrary, transportation mainly focuses on how we are effective and how we move goods or people through a more solid way and not so much depending on the human perspective. So transportation, as we say here in this slide, is something you do, but mobility is something you have. It's something that we have to take into account seriously for our course and in general for the integrated planning. So why is urban mobility significant? Why we should study that? We should study mobility because we focus on the satisfaction of social needs. And if you understand mobility and if we understand the mobility cultures, then it's very, very easy and it's very very realistic to change mobility cultures and to lead to livable and vivid cities. What is more, mobility affects the natural and built environment. We can see that the way that we move, it's very important for prosperity of our communities, growth, if we consider that through an economic perspective, and of course, livability, if we see that through the human interaction. So it's very significant to note that successful mobility schemes like for example, if we construct a complete network of cycling routes, then we're gonna set or we're gonna achieve like a true relationship between the natural and the built environment. So it's very, very important when we propose these schemes to understand both of the environments, both people, but also buildings, also the infrastructure and stuff like that. And when we talk about sustainable mobility, also we are very, very keen on protecting the environment. That's why this relationship between natural and built environment would be not only effective, but prosperous to the next generations. So what else? Mobility plays also a crucial role in economy. Economy, environment, and society are the three pillars of sustainability in general. So in that extent, mobility plays also a considerable role in economic activities. Another example that we have to take into account is that when we make some pedestrianizations, for example, transform streets from arterials into pedestrian routes or into traffic calming areas, meaning areas with low speed limits, then new economic activities might emerge. So it's very important to understand that mobility not only affects the way that we think or the way that the environment is built and functions, but also the economic activity in cities. So just a brief term, because we are talking about sustainable mobility, and we have also mentioned in the previous courses the term and the concept of sustainable mobility, but we should firstly note what is exactly this kind of term. So it indicates a system where these three pillars are really considered and are really taken into account when we plan. And also, it tries to assess the needs of safety, respecting the environment, and also make a future that is viable for the next generations as well. Finally, something very important about sustainable mobility is not only the efficiency, but it's something that is very challenging, and we have to promote our planning perspective towards that. It's affordability. It's something very, very important for our cities and for our urban areas. So, what else? Something that I have mentioned it before is that when we talk about sustainable mobility, because it has the term of sustainability together with mobility, we have to underline the human experience. It's not only about being transferred between one place to another. It's not about moving from A to B. It's about living a new experience which is based both on efficient indicators, but also on how we perceive the environment. Are we feeling like comfort? Are we safe? Do we feel happy? Do we feel anxiety? It's because mobility is a human task. It's not like an automatic procedure. It's something that we have to take into account the human perspective and also how we feel and how all these measures that we make influence ourselves and our minds. Also, another very important part is very connected to sustainability, because we have to protect the environment. We have to promote solutions like, for example, active modes, walking and cycling, and what else? To promote like electric vehicles and stuff like that, with all the negative impacts that they have. But we firstly have to change the conventional way of moving with the petrol and gas cars, and transform our environments towards that more climate-friendly perspective. The final bullet, it's also very, very critical, because sustainable mobility reflects the reality on resources and energy constraints. Sustainability dictates that the source of energy are not endless. They are limited. So sustainable mobility schemes should acknowledge that and propose some measures and interventions accordingly. Okay, jumping from the term, the sustainable mobility characteristics are many, but okay, we do not have to remember all of that, but we have to understand them. So what is more and more important is, like, we have actors, social and physical systems. It's something that I'm constantly focusing on, because traditional planning initiatives, they do not take into account humans, and sustainable mobility should be different. And we have to connect that with an example. For instance, if I want to go in a city center to walk, it's very different to walk along with cars beside me, and it's very different to walk with other people beside me. So when we plan for a pedestrianized route, for example, we have to take into account how people should interact, or how they want to interact. We do not have to take like a very strict model and take one bullet or one dot and resembling a citizen and then model this kind of bullets for efficiency. We have to plan, okay, take into account some models, but when we have to plan based on the interaction between the actors of streets. Also, something very important and very complementing to that is that the streets are not only for transportation. Streets are vivid spaces, are spaces that we interact with each other, we communicate, we may stop for a moment and just see the environment. They are also places of protests. We may have a protest there, are also places of events. So this is also one and very, very crucial characteristic of sustainable mobility. The different view of space, of the street space. Moreover, okay, and it's very, very clear and it's very connected to our course, we have to integrate transport with land uses and environment. It's something that we are constantly underlining in this course. We have to promote, for example, sustainable mobility, but at the same time, we have to think about the land uses. It's not that these two kinds of characteristics are isolated with each other. They are very, very, very connected. So when we change the transport infrastructure, we have simultaneously to take into account what about the land uses. The final bullet is also very, very important because the management and governance of sustainable mobility should be one of its main characteristics. Conventionally, we may see that planners or engineers try to transform the environment just by their own acts or their own perspectives. But now this is changed. And our previous course about participatory planning is very unveiling about how we have to engage citizens also in transport planning initiatives, because transport is from communities, okay, with planners assisting on that purpose, but is from communities to communities. We have to manage and govern the sustainable mobility initiatives accordingly. The goals, once again, these are all described here for clarity, because we have to be efficient, we have to be accessible. And what we mean by accessible, we mean two things. First, that we can move. If, for example, we are disabled, we have the right to move in our cities. This is one kind of accessibility. And another is the right to move from different places to others. So a city is not accessible if I have 1 kilometer distance and with public transport is like 45 minutes and by car is 5 minutes only. It's not an accessible system through the sustainable mobility perspective. It's something different. So we have to promote sustainability. Also, affordability, as I said before, is very, very important for the objectives of sustainable mobility projects. And what else? System integration. It's like that when we plan, it's not the beginning and the end. When we plan, it's just the beginning. We have to monitor the process and the progress of all our sustainable mobility projects, interventions, measures, and so on. So system integration is like that we integrate all these kind of tasks: planning, monitoring, evaluation, and what else? We integrate the different modes. So which are the modes? We're gonna see them again in the later slides, but for the beginning, the modes are, for example, cars, the motorized movement, buses, the fixed route system of metro and tram, and also we have active modes like really active modes like cycling and walking, and somehow of hybrid active modes, and this is more related to micromobility. So what else that we have to remember is the environmental protection and of course the economic development, but I will focus more on the environmental protection because we say about the schemes that we want sustainability, we want electrification, for example, but all these kind of sustainable mobility, let's say, initiatives have also negative impact. So when we want to protect the environment, we have to take into account all the transport modes, especially the sustainable modes, and then we have to really consider which is the best solution and which truly protects the environment. And a very nice example of that is if I want to change the fleet of cars in a city, which are all petrol move and gas moving cars, and change them with electric vehicles, I should consider afterwards about how we produce all this kind of electricity. So maybe the best solution will not to really replace all the cars and replace some of these cars. The others should be substituted and replaced by active modes, by walking and cycling. And this could be the best solution for the environment. Lastly, and very important, is social equity. Because we want to change and we want to do something sustainable. But about whom? And which are the circumstances that one can be in such a system? Because we can promote sustainable mobility, but at the same time could enhance the inequity between, for example, low-income people and high-income ones. Or if we do that on specific areas, we may create spatial inequities, and the people living in one area could be very favored by our planning strategy, but others in the neighboring area could be very excluded. So this is another very important characteristic of sustainable mobility. About the principles, I'm not gonna read any of these bullets, but I want you to focus on the title. The first one is we integrate transport and land use, as we said, and we also have models to model that. This is very important because the first step is to understand it qualitatively, but then we also have some models that could forecast some different futures and understand and integrate these two elements very efficiently. Environmental condition and protection. We said a few things about that, so I'm not gonna stick to that very long, but it's the first bullet is very important because we have to recognize efficient ways of transportation. Social objectives, inclusiveness, we saw that about the equity things, social cohesion, and also to understand the mindset of people that move around. Economic development, mainly economic activity could be favored by two ways. By the green logistics, this is one way, and we're gonna see a presentation on that in the next hour, and also about some, let's say, local economy initiatives that are promoted through walking and cycling projects. This is also something that we have to take into account when we plan our transportation system. Principle 5, it's not only about transport, but in anything that we do in this course in general, we have to adopt a strategic approach. Firstly, we have to understand our goals, we have to understand the spatial level that we are working on, and then we have to change our micro scale environment. So the macro scale is the strategic approach. Principle 6, we have to consider all transport modes, except, for example, highways, let's say, which are mainly car-oriented. All other roads have to be firstly examined very carefully of how they can allocate and how they can devote space to different transport modes. Cycling, also micromobility like the e-scooters, and mainly walking. So this pyramid is like an inverse pyramid of the conventional approach, of the car-oriented approach. This pyramid is like we have the car at the end inside urban areas. I'm not talking about the rural areas right now, but urban areas, which is our scope. And then at the first point of this inverse pyramid, the first row, it's dedicated to people and to human activity. We also have to manage transportation demand efficiently through some models or through some indicators. It's very important to have some numbers as well. And also to identify strategies to maximize the multimodal capacity. What we mean when we say about multimodality. Multimodality can be seen both ways. Can be seen when one individual takes different modes to reach his or her or them destination. And on the other hand, is like when we have a street and we can allocate space to different modes. For example, we have a bus lane, and then we have a wide pedestrian sidewalk, and then we have a cycling lane, and then we have a car lane. This is a multimodal like street or a multimodal boulevard. Of course, we have to guide the implementation. We have to monitor that. We have to evaluate that. And this is very important for policymakers, especially, not only about, not so much about academia, but mainly about the practitioners and policymakers. We have to, when we talk about integrated planning, we have to be very clear with some guides and also some financial guidance in what perspective that we have to be clear about the sources, the founding sources that we can use and allocate different kind of budgets and then connect that budget to different kinds of solutions. So we are reaching the end of the principles. Very importantly, we have to measure the performance. So we need indicators. Okay, it's not only about making a different kind of project or idea, because if this is going to be implemented, then we have to monitor that. Is it okay? Do we create inequities? Do we achieve our goals? Do we have problems in these kind of projects and interventions that we have proposed? So we need indicators. We need to measure performance, and this is very, very critical. Public engagement, and as I've said before, we have to engage people into the process of planning. So I'm not gonna say more on that because we have also seen the respective course on participatory planning, but once again, all these four pillars of our course, they are very connected with each other. So one principle of sustainable mobility is to enhance public engagement and public access actively, not only through on the surface, let's say, but actively to dig into how we design and to have the opportunity to state their concerns or their ideas, the people. So what is very important is how our mobility discipline relates with others. So mobility planning is very, 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 very similar with transportation planning. However, we have to take into account the difference that lies between these two terms. We reference that at the beginning. But to move on, we have a very, very, we have a great relation with urban planning, with environment and geography. We also have some connection with economic science and maybe marketing, because when you want to like promote the sustainability actions and principles, you have to have like a more societal kind of marketing, not of enterprise or business marketing, something different. You have to promote that. So you have to be inspiring for the people. You have to persuade them to understand or just to try sustainability. It's not only that we dictate and we are like very strict. Okay, you should use your bicycle from tomorrow on. No, it's not the correct way. The correct way is that you have to get into touch with the people and understand them, and then like promote your idea. And by practicing and by examples, people will come gradually if they really do agree with the plans and use them and make them their own plans. So also we can see that computer science plays a role. And you do not have to be surprised, because computer science is getting high attention right now, and especially with AI processes and many sustainable mobility tasks or ideas. Not all of them, but many of them are implemented through using computer science, algorithms, and stuff like that. So we have to take into account that there is a small, but it's getting a high attention right now, relation with the algorithmic kind of processes. Okay, I promised just a few minutes ago that I'm going to talk about the sustainable transport modes, and we can see them in the slides. We have active movement here. We have a pointer, perfect. Here we have walking, we have the wheelchair movement, and also cycling, which is mainly the active movement tools or modes. Here, they lie in the middle, it's cycling and micromobility, because micromobility in scooters, if they are the power that we use, that we have to use them is more of electric, and they're not human powered. So the electric powered micromobility, the scooters, lie mainly on motorized movement, but not exclusively. And here we have the public transport option, which is the road, here the buses, and the fixed route, the trams. What you may see is that we do not have included cars, but this is something that I have to underline something. From one perspective, electric cars are also a means of sustainable transport modes. But from a human perspective, and when you want to change really your city, we have to abandon gradually the idea of the car being the mode of dominating our future generation. So we didn't include that here on purpose, because we want to underline and highlight the role of the other modes that complemented together can compete with car and do not just replace all conventional cars with electric cars or other related initiatives. Okay, so this is very important to note, because in many papers, for example, you may see that they want to promote sustainable mobility and they do only promote electric cars, but they do not say anything about the street environment. They do not consider streets to be like a realm of communicating and of interacting, and also they neglect the roles of active movement. So we have these kind of modes, which are the main sustainable transport modes, and if we want to complement them, okay, it's nice to change the conventional cars with electric ones. So some more things about the benefits of active movement. We can enhance public health if we walk or if we cycle. This is demonstrated through numerous research studies. It's affordable, of course, at least till today. I do not think they may come up with an idea to charge us to walk, but it's not something that we should deem as a constant factor. We should like claim our right to walk and cycle freely. Also, they are very environmental friendly. Honestly, they might be the more environmental way of moving. And of course, they can improve the quality of urban environment because these two things go hand by hand. Additionally, they are flexible, especially when we walk, we are just ourselves and we walk if we can, or if we use a wheelchair. It's not the same, but we should have the right to use our wheelchair everywhere. Today, it's not something connected with flexibility, but sustainable mobility needs to do that, needs to do the movement of wheelchairs and all disabled people or people at disadvantage, like elderly or people carrying with little children or people carrying their SUMPs. They should have the right to move freely and to experience an accessible environment. Final, road safety. These kind of movements, they replace some car trips and we might statistically enhance road safety, and also through some alterations and changes in the environment, we can create more and safer routes to walk and to move on. But we have challenges. It's not like this active movement is the solution to anything. We have like the road environment can be a barrier. Also, the physical conditions of people move. They may have some problems and they can't walk or move freely and through with comfort. Weather conditions are very, very, very important, and they are somehow they are quite insufficient for long distance trips. For example, if you want to go from one city to another, okay, probably you want to choose to walk. So that's why we need sustainable transport modes, because they do really enhance road safety. Fewer cars on the road mean that we have the opportunity to promote buses and to promote trams and the metro. Modes should be affordable. And if we can achieve that, they should be at low cost or even free sometimes, because they are examples of cities abroad, like the entire Luxembourg or Estonia have tried these systems. They have many benefits and also challenges. Okay, there's not something that creates not only benefit, but we may stick to the benefits compared to a car-oriented reality when we have to pay, when we have to cover all these costs related with owing and moving the car. Also, what else? We can be very, very effective towards traffic congestion as well, because fewer cars and but on the same time, many people inside these modes, because we need, for example, 1,000 people, we can use 2 trams, for example, and with cars like 250 cars, and the space taken and the space that we need with all these cars is very different than the space that we need through the public transport modes. But challenges exist as well here. Traditional public transport may be not so flexible if we see the big buses, so we have to take into account door-to-door solutions, on-demand solutions, like we call a minibus that can penetrate some areas and serve our neighborhood or our center, the fares could create and could raise inequity. For example, if we want to take a bus on a monthly basis, it could be expensive. So we have to make some incentives and some initiatives or some discounts for specific socioeconomic groups. And finally, it's something very important that when we talk about motorized movement and especially about public transport, then we should embark into electrification because like the buses and the vehicles should be really fewer compared to electric cars. So we do not embark into a complete electrification era. We do utilize electrification in a more like efficient way and more climate-friendly way. So about the urban mobility users, we have to say also a few things just to see some pictures, because sometimes pictures are more descriptive and more understandable than writing bullets and texts. So the users, they are various users in the street space. The kind of understanding users is complex. We have to understand the interaction between them, because one user may be harmful to another, or one user may be beneficial to another one. We have to understand the conflicts, the differences, and also the cooperation. So just to see them one by one through these pictures, we have healthy and able-bodied users. Maybe they are the majority, but we're not sure about that because we have children on the streets. We have people with disabilities. And here you can see, this is images from Spain, I think. You can see the problem of not getting not only the correct infrastructure, but not getting recognized by your co-users of the street. They do not consider, for example, people with disabilities. The first group, the able-bodied users, do not recognize others. We also can see women and elderly because they have different kinds of needs, and we have to address them, and we have to promote their role into transportation plan. We have immigrants. It's very important when you have to welcome different people, you have to be more open to, for example, the signs. When you want to be a welcome community, you have to understand different needs on the signs as well, on the signs on the streets. Also, public transport users which do not own a car and are mostly related and mostly dependent on public transport. They are different kind of group: pedestrians, cyclists, and the final groups are, of course, car drivers, and it's different to car passengers because car drivers have different kinds of attitude in the street. And professionals is something that we may sometimes forget, because the life of a professional needs different kind of treatment compared to like a pedestrian. And of course, okay, the final one is the micromobility users. So these are all the users that we can see. Also, if you have any other idea, we are welcome. We're welcoming you to mention that. But the users should be the focus of our planning perspectives. So what about an integrated approach? And we're going to see some examples right now at the minutes that we have left. I have 10 minutes, 15, maybe? Perfect. So traditional planning are monothematic, monofunctional. They see that each kind of transport mode it's separated compared to the other ones. So we have to change that, to really rethink of that rationale. We have to bring different transport modes together. And under what circumstances. The circumstance would be to make things more integrated. And so we have to think of some strategies, firstly, before we change our environment, that connect land uses and the transport modes. One very, very, very important kind of planning strategy is the street classification. How we classify the streets. You have seen, for example, that Google Maps has different colors according to the role of the streets. So this is a kind of classification. We classify like the motorway, we classify the primary arterial, we classify the local streets, the pedestrian streets. The conventional approach, they also have one kind of classification, the traffic related one. But what we should do, and in our course, we are just taking a glimpse of all of this classification kind of approach. We have to think of a matrix here, which is one dimension is the transport connection, and the other dimension is the urban role and the urban importance, let's say. So through these cells, we can understand streets and transport planning through an integrated way, simultaneously. Urban planning on the one side, transportation and mobility on the other. This is something very important for future perspectives related to integrated planning, because we see these two different dimensions together. This is critical for the future. We can see an example. Here is the conventional one, which is like motorways everywhere. They are spread and they're penetrating. The center here is Athens, the metropolitan area of Athens. Here's the center of Athens, and we can see all these motorways. But it's like that we have to take into account a different perspective and transform our city. Okay, this is a plan, of course, it's not implemented, fortunately, but it's a plan that we have to protect center. Here is the center through also in this kind of area with the blue color, we have to promote the public transport options, and cars should be mainly prioritized in the peripheral roads. Another kind of initiative is the super blocks. And when we talk about super blocks, is about protecting some blocks within an area. So here we can see this model is from Barcelona. They have taken their building blocks. If someone has visited Barcelona, it should be easier to understand this kind of conceptual plan. And what they do is that they merge these kind of different like blocks, and they create like a super block. It's like being one, because these kind of green areas, the green streets could be either be pedestrianized or would be traffic calmed. And what we mean by traffic calming, lower speed limits, and also change the environment. We restrict some parking spaces, or we plant some trees. We also have a social activity dedicated space and stuff like that. Another one, the complete streets, multimodal corridors. I've mentioned that before. Here is the conceptual picture of that, because okay, it's it's easier to understand that through seeing this picture. Here we have the sidewalk, we have the cycling lane, we have the mixed traffic with some buses and cars, and we have the fixed route system with a streetcar or a tram. This is a truly an effective perspective example of multimodal transport plan. We are reaching the end, and last but not least, we have also some indicative measures. Walking routes. Okay, we say about walking, we say about a different kind of urban environment. So what we do need, we need walking routes. They have to be connected. We have to implement crosswalks. We have to obtain and construct sidewalks with huge, not huge, but great width, so they can be accessible. And we also have to note the streetscape features like benches or the signs or the bus stations, everything. They should be connected with what people and what visitors and significant. What makes them comfortable? What enhance their comfort? What makes them feel safe? What makes them feel happy through constructing and implementing and designing, first designing and then implementing the walking routes. In the same line, we have the cycling routes as well, because we have to take into account the road network and the natural environment and the geomorphology. It's not easy to implement cycling lanes everywhere. So we have to utilize, for example, electric bikes in big slopes and stuff like that. We also take into account the urban environment, because when you plan for a cycling route, it's very connected to the approach of walking routes. We have to utilize the roads that are more attractive to the cyclists. And also we have to cover different kinds of land uses and to connect them together. Public transport routes is very, very, very important. We have to be readable. The systems should be readable to the user. For example, if you have like 15 metro lines, so it's very challenging to make the users understand them easily. So we have to be to make like a brand in each line, to make a name, to make a color. Here in Athens, we have 3 lines. One is green, the blue, and the red one. So it's easy because there are only 3, and it's easy to understand the difference with each line. But if we, for example, imagine different kinds of a planning scheme that we have 9 lines, maybe the user could be it will be more complex to navigate through all these lines. So they have to be prioritized compared to cars in urban city centers, and they have to be direct, especially the trunks line. The trunk lines is the major ones, the corridors. They have to be direct. So here are some kinds of connectivity types and how we can make the bus networks realized. For example, this is the radial, this is a trunk, and we have the feeders, and we also have a grid. So another type of solutions, this is the last one that we're gonna see together, is the urban planning solutions and urban design solutions, because we have to take into account this kind of integrated perspective, integrated approach. We have the transit-oriented development, where what you really do is like on a buffer area around the station, you have mixed land uses. You have to enhance interaction between people there, and you also make this kind of area accessible, really accessible. So it's a start and make a city that is really connected with the public transport lines. It has some challenges because what about the other areas? Are they going to be abandoned? Are they going to be car-oriented? So it's something that we have to take into account when we plan with this transit-oriented development solution. The 15-minute city is something that through a center, for example, in the center of your neighborhood, you can find many amenities and land uses in a 15-minute city travel distance, minute distance, let's say. But okay, the 15 is something that is under question. It can be an X-minute city, because 15 is something different on different cities. And also another question is why city and not a neighborhood? It's also a challenge. So you can see that despite being solutions for sustainable mobility planning, there can be challenges as well. It's not that they are the one and only solution. They're perfect. We can change what we propose each time depending on the context. And we also have some design solutions, which is the final slide, which we have the shared spaces or traffic calming measures. What we mean by that, shared space is to share the street, so the car can pass by with a limit of 30 or 20 kilometers per hour, and then people can walk together, because it has been demonstrated that in this kind of spaces, road safety goes up despite of cars being there. Because if they must move with speed of lower than 30 kilometers per hour. And as we have to manage the on-street parking, because it's very, very important where and why we can park and utilize the space accordingly, either for parking or for widening the sidewalks. And finally, we have open and play streets, which are a mode of temporarily closing the street and then devoting the space for children to play or for other kinds of activities, for protests, for like events and stuff like that. So to conclude, it was like 50 minutes of sustainable mobility. It's a massive introduction, but it's very important to understand some points. So the main points to remember is that we have to integrate transport and land use. We have to take into account human perspective. We have to be readable. We have to be like affordable. And also we have to take into account the three perspectives of accessibility. That's all for me, and thank you.